This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening. Hello, this is F.D. Recovery. My name is Frank, your host. This portion of the podcast is the weekly intention. So last week we did trust, but this week we're going to stick to the T and we're going to do truth. But before we dig into truth, we're going to do a little recap on trust. So trust kind of came up for me. I didn't get a chance to do any notes just because I've been so busy with work, but so I'm just going to shoot it from the heart and let's see where my higher power guides me. But yeah, the trust factor, it came in a couple times, one big time in my marriage. So, sometimes you get in these negative beliefs about yourself and about your past, and it just leads you down the rabbit hole with certain trust issues in your relationship. And but I was able to communicate some of my, I guess, insecurities, you would call it, right? And before, what I would do with some of my insecurities, I would just act as if they were true, right? And but I've been doing a really good job over the years, especially in recovery, to kind of minimize the effect that some of my insecurities can bleed into, right? So, like a good example of that is, my paranoia, which can lead to anger, which could lead to even bigger mistakes where I would have to make an amends. But the conversation went pretty subtle. I asked my wife a couple questions and she answered, and she was totally cool about it. And she says, "Why you ask?" I said, I'd rather ask than just start treating you like shit. And she goes, "Well, I appreciate that." And if as small as it sounds, that's big growth for me, right? Because I'm trying to live a different life, and I'm just trying to repeat myself with this whole trust thing, because I'm really trying to stick to my, whatever intention I'm choosing for the week. And it is quite a hurdle, right? And this whole trust thing is big, right? So also with this trust thing is connecting with other people was a big thing for me, right? Because mostly in the dope game, or just some of that prison life, or just even trying to life out there. When I remember, I was so in tune to all the negativity in life that no matter what the situation came up, it was like there was no trust involved when it comes to other people. And that was a hard pill to swallow for a number of years, because your world gets really small when those walls are up. And to overcome some of those character defects, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of conscious behavior where you really have to look at yourself and do a leveling of pride and ego in the moment, which is sometimes the hardest. It's easy sometimes. I wouldn't say easy, but it's way more easy to like screw up and then do some step work and get with the sponsor and go, "Oh yeah, I screwed up." I mean, it's not easy, but it's easier than actively doing that without your sponsor and realizing live in the moment you're actually using these tools you would use to fix a situation after it already happened. And then now, now you're actually using those tools in real life as the moment comes up, and you're kind of fixing it before it even happens. And it's just kind of a trip to Because that was mostly what I was doing, right? Most of my recovery is screw up, screw up, screw up, step work, screw up, step work, screw up, step work. But now it's like I can do some of that step work before the screw up, right? When we're talking about take a conscious inventory or conscious contact with God, and and kind of mix and mingle all that, right? You have to take an inventory. You got to give it to God, and constantly be in contact with your higher power, and also just constantly check your motives. You can do a step four right where you are, right? So really just doing you could either do it physically or just mentally too. Checking your motives is super important. Am I restless, irritable, discontent? Was I selfish, fearful, dishonest? All these things that we look for in some of our behaviors, right, is really that's what keeps me away from trust, right? So but it was a real unique situation, and as small as it was, and how it sounds to maybe a normal person jumping on here and going, okay, well, that's just day-to-day life. But for us addicts and alcoholics, it doesn't quite work that easily. Most of us are malnutrition when it comes to spirituality or even right living, that we tend to get to a place of chaos relatively quick. So at least I know that's true for me. So, um, and if you're out there and you resonate with that totally, I know you're on the same page as me, because I was the arbiter of pain for most of my life, of self-inflicted wounds. So, and there I was, right, every time. Don't get me wrong, I always try to blame people, but when it comes to most of this, it's hard to trust somebody when you're not doing trustworthy things yourself, and kind of give to get, right? And you're only gonna your limit's gonna only uh, be at where your capacity is to, in any kind of situation. Like your capacity to love, if it hits a wall, then you can't really, in order to expand that, you have to really try to fix some of this stuff and open up your heart, because um and it's easier said than done, right? We get into these real wisdom talks of, well, it almost feels like, we're reading off of a Hallmark card, like, oh, that sounds good in theory, and that's beautiful, and it's something you'd give to somebody on a wedding anniversary I love you card. But to really dig deep with some of these spiritual principles and actually work them in your life, it's tough. It comes out ugly, for me at least. And if you're out there and you resonate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know there's different phases, right? But you know, my sponsor can jump on here and go, well, it's just a daily working in my life and yada. And I respect the hell out of him, because I watch him, I watch him execute that. And in his life, that's totally true. But for me, there's a lot more friction, right? And just kind of paying homage to where you're at in the process of all this, right? Like that was the one thing where I blended honesty with a little bit of humility, is when you can reach those points of just true, the truth within the situation, right? And not what you're trying to make it out to be. And um, so the practice of trust all week was just trying to make connections and keep those connections um, healthy, right? Because especially with my wife, I tried my best, because I mean we're roommates, we're lovers, we're in a marriage. There's so many different facets to what the significant other is. There are a lot of things in your life, right? So in order to honor that person, you got to really watch, because sometimes the way my life has been going is I tend to hurt some of the people that are closest to me, because I know they'll stick around and they'll put up with a little bit more. And whether it's right or wrong, that's not the conversation here. It's just the way it's showing up in my life, right? So I really have to be conscious of um, those little things, right? The snippy attitude, right? Because it comes down to this. If I'm at work, there's a person that comes in, and whether likable or not, I watch my tone, right? But then I get home and I think I don't have to have that filter, like I compartmentalize these different relationships, and that's not okay. So, and that's not the life I want to live, right? So trying to show up in all situations the best I can, and it's always going to change, right? Because some days are different. Some days you get bad news. I got some bad news of a sponsee last week. I don't want to get too far into it, but it was a big trust thing that really broke my trust when it comes to sponsees. He was going through his life journey, and I poured a lot into him, and it didn't stick, right? And through that, and it was potentially violent situations when it came down to it. But without getting into the mess, it really damaged my trust, right? So it's really changed the way I operate, especially with sponsees. But trying to overcome that, and um, getting involved with uh, different sponsees, new sponsees, and doing the work without letting those past situations come up for me, right? And that's why it takes doing the work, because everyone's different and every situation's different, and it's not really a bad thing, because I know I learned from it, and I knew it taught me new boundaries. And but watching that happen for this person, and some of the things he's facing today due to his drug addiction and alcoholism is tough to watch. So but going back to being able to have a free heart, and not let those bad um, interactions with people change the course of my recovery to where I become calloused and close-hearted and close-minded. That's not the life I want to live. Even though it did have an effect on me, I got to try to still bridge that gap to connection with other people, because they're not them, and the same thing goes with my wife. It's like I've had a lot of hurt in my past, and I know that that's just coming from a place of trauma and stuff that is unresolved, that that come up in certain ways that you don't necessarily realize until you're already triggered, right? So just able to navigate through that and just be a human, and go understand that you're going to have this stuff go on in your recovery and in life, and you're really just honoring the other person in it, and just trying to keep your heart open even though you have a lot of stuff going on within you, right? I don't know if any of that made sense, but I hope it did. I'm just going to close off on trust, because uh, ch- you know well, one thing is, I want to, God has really helped me in this. Whenever throughout the week, I would just repeat trust, trust the situation, trust God. God has a plan for you, and if you're struggling with your higher power, that's okay. We're all work in progresses out there. And so let's move on to truth. So when I did truth, right, I wasn't going to do truth, but it kept popping up in my head, and because I did honesty, right? And I'm like, okay, I already did honesty, so I'm not going to do truth. Why would I do truth? They're the same thing. So I was about to move on from that, but it kept popping up in my head to do truth, and I'm like, okay, well, I jumped online, and I was like, well, what's the difference between honesty and truth? And turns out there's quite a big difference, more than I thought. Um, and truth versus honesty. While both truth and honesty are related to sincerity and accuracy, they have distinct meanings. Honesty focuses on the sincerity of statement or action, while truth refers to the factual accuracy of that statement or action. In other words, you can be honest about something you believe, even if that belief is not actually true. So I was like, oh, wow, that was a big so let me repeat that last part. It says, in other words, you can be honest about something you believe, even if that belief is not true. And that clicked for me. I was like, oh, wow, there's so many times in my recovery and um, also in my addiction where that was, the way it related best to me was like, oh man, I could remember being 100% convinced of either I was telling somebody I'm gonna stay clean, I'm gonna do right, and I was completely sincere and honest, right? But the facts were I was still sneaking off smoking this and shooting that, and in my heart before the relapse of when I was telling people I was clean or and I was really buying my own shit, like as far as like I would I would I would entrench myself in the lie. And I know this is a little bit different, but denial kind of clicked for me. I was like, oh, okay, so when do we really come out of the fog of denial, right? Because most of the time when we're in denial, it's like, yeah, we know on some level we're lying, but it's almost like a layer thing, right? Where you're just like, oh my gosh, I've been kind of just turning a blind eye or blocking this out, and you get into these level of awakening, and where the truth actually comes and hits you, right? Where you've been speaking a narrative about a situation for so long, and you were like, oh my gosh, I've been altering the facts. And I've been honestly thinking that I was telling the truth. And then that kind of brings truth into the matter. I'm like, okay, whoa, so what are the facts? Right? So many years that I was trying to pretend, right? Whether it was probation, whether it was a girl, whether it was family, I was trying to pretend this, right? And so um, I would, I would, I would say it with such conviction, right? And I would be completely like everything would match up. And in my heart of hearts, and the truth of the matter, I did none of the work to really get me to that place of actually being sober and continue to be sober. So, what I was being sincere, genuine, and all that, and all my words and actions, but I was not. I was not getting down to the truth of it, right? Because the truth was, I never really had any kind of skills of being sober, right? So all those attempts of frothy emotions, and and all these nights of trying to get my girl back, or trying to get a family member back in my good graces, and speaking these elaborate plans of like, please, I'm gonna change, and I was really 100% completely bought, right? But then what would happen is so say this person would let me back in the house, or they let me back into their life. It was just a matter of time, because whether I realized it or not, there was this unkept beast inside me, and I would be good, and then all of a sudden I get this craving, right? I don't know if you guys ever had to deal with cravings, whether it be dope, whether it be alcohol, but it almost hits you, and it's just like there's a mission that activates, right? And I just remember using against my will for so long, right? I wanted something different, and I sincerely believed that I really wanted something different. But the truth of it, I was still going to the same places. I was still going to the same behaviors that I've always known. I was still ending up in the same trap house, going, wow, how the hell did I get here again? And it was numerous times. So much to the point where, from 13 to, 28, whenever I got sober, or 29, um, it was like, I don't know, maybe it was like, I think it might have been 30. No, 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 29. And getting to that point of going, wow, my whole life has been just one fabricated piece, right? And then when I started getting to the real truths, not those fancy words that I was always using, right? And um, I'd always use sincerity and be genuine and uh, use perfect placement of words, and I really bought into it myself, right? And there I was, avoiding all the truth, right? And the truth was, is I was still not ready. I was still wanting to get high, and I was still lacking the skills that it really takes to be sober. You can white knuckle it for some time, but unless you do some work and actual change, it says in the book, right? It's that change of psyche. It just until you can get to that place, right, which takes a lot of work, you're not really digging down to the roots, right? So when we got into this house cleaning business, as far as the fourth step and fifth step and all the steps, when you're cleaning house using the steps to do that, right, you don't really get to those facts, right? The fourth step, and then you share your with your sponsor, and you drop your fifth step, and getting down to that, the real truth of stuff, not the stuff you convinced yourself, right? Because I remember telling my sponsor a bunch of crazy shit. I thought I was really honest, and I was being sincere, and I was using all these almost as a weapon, right, to really just push this narrative. And I realized, okay, what was the truth? And getting down to the facts. Selfish, dishonest, fearful, all of it. Like, okay, whoa, those things, right? And to even go further in it, it says here's a more detailed breakdown. It goes honesty, focus, being sincere, genuine, and transparent in one's words and actions, requirements, not intentionally deceiving or misleading others. So, example, someone might honestly believe the earth is flat even though it's not, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. There's so many things that I used to believe about life, and it just is not true. Like some of this code of never snitching and just trying to be a Billy badass and using my ego and manipulation and control to kind of get whatever I want. I really thought those are things that I really ascribed to, and it's almost like that's no different than thinking the world is flat when all evidence out there proves that the world's round. And that was the same thing, is like every piece of evidence throughout my life, through the relationships I had, it was proving that the way I was living was not working and did not work, right? And I had proof of that, but I was avoiding the truth, right? So when I think back on when I was like, well, I did honesty, and I didn't even realize there's a difference, right? And then it goes on a little bit to say truth. um, Focus, accuracy, factual correctness, and conformity with reality. Wow, that's pretty conformity with reality. Imagine actually being, yeah, that was what I was far from most of the time. I was never aligned with actual reality, right? I thought I was a baller in my mind, and I didn't have a cent in a bank or even a bank account. Let's keep it real. For a long time there, I overdrafted everything, and they had to cut, they had to cut me off from that, and I ended up in debt with them. So, you know, that conformity or even attachment to reality just was not there. So then requirements, representing things as they actually are, regardless of one's belief or intentions. Okay, that's a big one, right? Uh, Representing things as they actually are, regardless of one's beliefs or intentions, right? Beliefs, intentions, all those things. It's like, really, what are we doing here? If you're trying to um, if you're trying to alter it based off of either limiting belief or pre-existing bias, however you get there, or even if your intentions are good, but you're convoluted and all this other stuff. I mean, are you really going to get down if you're representing things as they actually are? you know, regardless of one's belief or intentions, right? Letting all that stuff getting in the way of actually receiving the actual true message that you need to hear at that moment, right? The sky's blue, the sky's blue, no, it's not, it's purple. It's like, well, are we living in the same reality here? So those are those kind of reflection moments where, don't get me wrong, I think there might be some purple skies sometimes, depending on the lighting and crap like that. Probably a bad example. And it says examples, a statement that accurately reflects a scientific fact is considered truthful, even if someone might disagree with it, right? You can't argue with gravity. It's happening, right? So, and it says to continue, honesty doesn't always equal truth. A person can be sincere and truthful about their beliefs, even if their beliefs are inaccurate or based off misinformation. Truthfulness requires both honesty and accuracy. To be truthful, one must not only be sincere, but also present reality accurately. 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 There we go. Both are important. While honesty is crucial or critical for building trust, there's that trust again, and fostering a healthy relationship, truth is essential for understanding and navigating the world effectively. Man, it's funny because I didn't even recognize the difference in that, right? But I mean, that's why we do this to kind of dig into those spiritual principles and even these words where we're trying to use. And I've been using them kind of thinking as like they're the same and they are interchangeable in a way, but like it's saying right there, it's like, you got honesty is just the expression of if your beliefs and everything are not aligned with the honest sincerity that you're expressing, then where's truth at in all of it? And it's like aligning your beliefs along with your actions, along with the actual reality at hand, right? And so the way it works for me with my ego, it would tell me, "Oh, I got this. I got this. I can do this. I can get high one time." And I would be completely convinced, but I knew that was wrong, right? So I'm being honest and sincere in my emotions and feelings, and then I would go convince myself of these realities that I can be just a quick little weekend warrior. I can do that, and that just was never the case for me. And so I'd fall in these really passionate relapses where I was completely convinced I can just smoke for the weekend, and by Monday, don't worry, I'll make sure to piss clean for the PO. But that just wasn't actual reality, right? The truth was I couldn't stop. The truth was I had an uncontrollable obsession and urge once I put in. And even before I even put in, right, until I got a head full of recovery, I had really no tools. So it was only a prolonged white knuckle until I really just relapsed, right? Because that's all I really knew. Whether I use a woman, drugs, uh, you know, fast cars, whatever it was in my reality, and even in jail, too much coffee, violence, just to make the time pass. I was always addicted to something, right? So getting down, I thought, when I jumped on here, I was going to say, I'm not going to, before I even dug into truth, I'm like, I already know truth. It's all good, right? You know, but I really only knew that I was, or what I really was only getting at was just only half of the battle, right? I knew a little bit about honesty and sincerity, but actually matching it to match your reality and where I'm actually at. So today, right, the way I'm going to work truth, I'm going to look at everything the way it really is, right, and get some input on others, right? If I don't know how to solve a problem, I'm going to reach out and tell people the truth. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Because before I would just go ahead and act like I know what I'm doing and fake it as you make it, right? And in some cases that doesn't work, right? You need to be truthful and like, hey man, I need help. I need fucking help, right? And getting to the truth of the matter and just being able to combine truth and honesty is a beautiful thing, right? And just until a few days ago, I didn't realize or understand the real meaning of both. I just thought they were the same, right? Truth and honesty, and where they and yes, they do share a lot of the same qualities, right? You still need to, have one with the other. You want to be speaking whatever you're speaking in a truthful way based off facts, not flying spaghetti monster religion where you're just completely speaking nonsense, right? And no diss against anybody that actually believes in the flying spaghetti monster, but I just use that as an example, right? So but if you're out there and you were confused like me beforehand about truth and what's the difference between truth and honesty, it's like, wow. So truth, as I understand it, is some of those facts that are consistent. Like the facts is I used for so many years and I had no tools to get myself at it. But the facts now, the truth now is I have so many tools at my disposal and I can use them and I do use them many times throughout my day and throughout my whole week. And those are the facts now, right? And I don't have to play that fake game of where I'm trying to convince people around me because my honesty and sincerity match my truth. And it feels really good. Yeah, I have my doubts just like everybody else and insecurities like everybody else. That's the part of this whole game that's just a part of it, right? And I've outgrew a lot of those things throughout the years, but there's more to come, right? So if you're out there and you're struggling with truth or trust or any of these weekly or these spiritual principles that I'm bringing up, tune in, man. Get in with us, and I'm looking at every single comment out there. So if you're feeling inclined and you can think of a good um, topic of spiritual principle, and throw it in the comments down there. If I haven't already done it, I'll put it on the list of and what to do, and I'll give you a shout out too, even, and thank you to all my listeners out there. We'll get another interview here shortly. We'll get some people lined up, get Dave on here and Eric on here because they're a part of this FD recovery experience as well. But yeah, that's how I'm going to use truth throughout my week is I'm just going to keep it real with myself as possible, right? Not this make world believe world where I try to use passion and fancy words to convince myself of BS or other people of BS. Just get to the truth of it, man. If I'm scared, I just got to admit it. I got to get real with myself. If I'm struggling, I just gotta be in that struggle and reach out to someone because that's the way out of this is just getting to the truth, man. Not that fake watered down vanilla shit. We're talking about real truth where we could actually grow from and get down to the core. And if you're out there and you haven't tried these 12 steps, man, I urge you to find a 12-step meeting and get on it because man, your life can completely transform. I promise you that. And sorry if I just kind of rambled on this, but I didn't have really any notes like I usually do. So I was just kind of spitballing. I appreciate you guys for checking in with me. This is F.D. Recovery, and this week is Truth for Spiritual Principle. Follow along with us. Drop some comments, like, subscribe, share, all that. Your support is close to our hearts, guys, so I appreciate it. All right, FD Recovery, we're out. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor, get connected to local support groups, and for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.